late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, whom I was fortunate enough to meet in 2009 when he was in California, recognized with the Von Karman Award for aerospace. The reason I wanted to put this up front is to give you some inspiration as to why accreditation, and in particular why engineering, is so important in our lives. So one of the slides that I want to share with you is a book by Dr. Kalam. It's called India 2020. Here we are, a vision for the new millennium. If you've not had a chance to read it, please pick up a copy. I think you'll be very impressed with what he had to say. But more importantly, when I had a chance to meet with President Kalam, I had in my hands a copy of his biography, Wings of Fire. And he was kind enough to autograph it for me. He's just a wonderful gentleman, a great human being, and an amazing president for India. One of the things that he says in his book is he talks about vision. He says sight is about what lies in front of us. Vision is what lies ahead. And then he goes on to talk about how you can achieve that vision, namely looking at 4 areas of development: people, economy, strategic strength, and infrastructure. And it's Dr. Kalam's opinion that technology provides an answer. Now, you'll know immediately how this conversation that we're having today is so important to achieving Dr. Kalam's vision. So when you hear what he says about the role of technology, he says that it's not only to provide sophisticated machinery and all these materials that provide utility to everyone around the world, but it also should be to produce goods and also to reuse products sustainably to minimize waste and environmental pollution. So technology should not only be for the classes, but for the masses. So very important concept. And today we are living in the world of COVID-19, the pandemic. So these words become all the more important, particularly for all of us in engineering, particularly for all of us from societies such as the IEEE, whose motto is advancing technology for humanity. Another source of inspiration is our former president, late Dr. Pranab Mukherjee. And this is something that he said in 2014 when we were commemorating the birth centenary of Acharya Satish Chandra Mukherjee. He was a teacher and educationist of the 20th century. And one of the things that President Mukherjee said at the time is that we need to make the effort to create teams of inspired teachers by establishing linkages with the global educational fraternity through the maximum use of information technology, by placing emphasis on research. And by doing this, the results will follow. Now, when you think about accreditation, I want you to keep these 2 thoughts in mind. In other words, sight is what lies in front of us, but vision is what lies ahead. And it's important for us to create teams of inspired teachers by establishing linkages with the global educational fraternity. So in a few minutes, you'll understand why accreditation and why ABET accreditation in particular plays an important role in bringing these visions to fruition. So before I begin, I want to thank Dr. Michael Milligan, who's the Executive Director and CEO of ABET, as well as Jessica Silvick, who's our ABET CFO and Chief Operating Officer. Some of the slides that I'm sharing with you are courtesy ABET and courtesy Dr. Milligan and Jessica. So here's what I want to cover today. So I have 6 topics. So first, I'll spend a few minutes talking to you about why accreditation matters. Then we'll cover principles of accreditation. We'll talk about ABET's global engagement. I'll talk about IEEE's role. Now, I know in India, we have the NBA, which is a partner with ABET in the Washington Accord. So I'll talk briefly about the NBA accreditation criteria, how they connect with ABET accreditation criteria. And then I'll close my remarks today by talking about how ABET is adapted to the challenges from COVID-19. For example, right now, all of our ABET visits are taking place virtually. In other words, there are no teams visiting institutions in person, but yet we are carrying out accreditation in the 2020 accreditation cycle. So that is a great example for me of how ABET and the institutions that we're visiting have adapted to make changes in the 2020 accreditation cycle. So probably the next 45 minutes or so, and then we'll stop and take some questions from the audience. So that's the plan today. So why does accreditation matter, right? When you think about accreditation, accreditation first and foremost assures quality that the programs that you're delivering meet the standards And why is this important? This is important because the programs are producing graduates who are ready to enter the profession. So whether it's mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, applied and natural science, technology, whatever field that you're in, it is important for industry to know that the graduates from the program are actually ready to practice. The other thing that is really critical about accreditation is that the institutions, the colleges, the universities where these programs are housed, these colleges, these universities, their faculty, the staff, they're all committed to improving the educational experience of the students. So together, we are providing value for the students, for the institutions, for faculty, and globally to industry and to general public. So this is one of the important reasons why accreditation is so critical in our society. A brief outline about ABET. ABET is a non-profit, non-governmental organization. So it's responsible for accrediting programs at the university level and the college level, and in 4 different disciplines: applied and natural science, computing, engineering, and engineering technology. It actually started almost 85 years ago in 1932, when it was called ECPD, the Engineers Council for Professional Development. IEEE, it turns out, was one of the founding member societies of ABET. At the moment, we have 36 member societies that are part of ABET. Think about ABET as a federation of societies. Today, ABET accredits more than 4,000 programs around the world in 700 colleges and over 30 countries. So, what is the value proposition? As I told you, ABET accreditation assures that the graduates emerging from your programs meet quality standards. Second, they're prepared to enter a global workforce. Now, think about the words of President Kalam and think about the words of President Mukherjee. And you think about ABET criteria and processes. Our criteria and processes are guaranteed to inspire confidence in the programs that we accredit. And furthermore, the graduates from our program are building a world that is safer, more efficient, more comfortable, and more sustainable. Again, everything that President Kalam talked about in terms of technology providing the answer, both for the masses as well as the classes, and what President Mukherjee talked about of how we need to have a global community of teachers, scholars, students, academics, and industry practitioners who are making the world a safer, more efficient, more comfortable, and more sustainable place. So very, very important. When you think about the value to industry, if you talk to any CEO in industry, they will tell you that they're looking for graduates who are ready to practice. In other words, are they ready to enter the profession and practice? One of the big components of ABET is our industry advisory group. So we have an industry advisory council that actually advises ABET on the ABET accreditation process. So it not only emphasizes what students learn during their curriculum, but it also emphasizes what students are able to practice from a global perspective when they leave the program. If you go to the website, indeed.com, I did this a few days ago, and I just typed in ABET, and it popped up with well over 4,000 hits. So in other words, industry is telling us that they value graduates who are coming out of ABET accredited programs. So this is another reason why ABET accreditation is so critical to industry. Next, we'll talk about some accreditation principles. And these are important to keep in mind, particularly for those of you who are members of IEEE, those of you who are from academia. So the first principle when it comes to accreditation is that this is done by a non-governmental organization, in this case, ABET. As I told you, ABET is a federation of member societies. The process needs to be fair and impartial. So how can you do this? You can do this by engaging people who are actually professional practitioners, who are from industry, who may be occupying positions in industry and government, educators, professors, administrators, deans, etc., and the review teams. It's really important for us to have consistent and uniform accreditation criteria. As I'll share with you in a few minutes, the accreditation criteria cover all aspects of the program. What are the policies and what are the procedures that are used in the reviews? And this should be practiced regardless of location. In other words, if you're reviewing a program in Vizag, or if you're reviewing a program in Southern California where I live, the same accreditation criteria, the same policies and procedures have to be used regardless of the location. The other important thing to keep in mind is that when we talk about ABET accreditation, It is programmatic accreditation, right? You have, in some cases, units that are accredited, or the institution is accredited. Regional accreditation, where they come in and they look at the entire college, they may look at the entire department as a whole. ABET accreditation is not about the unit or the institution. It takes those elements into account, but it's programmatic accreditation. Another important point, accreditation is voluntary. So there is nobody telling you that you need to seek accreditation. We want institutions to come to ABET, to come to the respective bodies and say, we are looking for our program to be accredited in order for us to demonstrate value to industry, in order for us to demonstrate value to government and so forth. Right? One of the other characteristics of accreditation is that we require the program to be looking inward and to do a self-assessment. In other words, what are you doing in terms of the curriculum? How do you deliver the curriculum? What processes do you have in place to ensure that outcomes are being met? So these are all important elements of the accreditation process, and it's a critical part of accreditation. Continuous improvement, right? This is probably the heart, the engine of accreditation. So no matter what you do, and I'll show you in a minute that ABET is an ISO certified process. Basically, it's individual program accreditation versus certification. The other important thing is all the standards need to be met, right? So you cannot make up a deficiency in one area by strengthening other areas. In this respect, the MBA criteria are a little bit different in the application compared to ABET criteria, right? Accredited programs simply tell institutions that you're complying with the standards. This is not a ranking system. You don't go out and say we were ranked X, Y, and Z. You just say that the program is accredited and therefore it meets the criteria based on the review at that point in time. So what's the process all about? When you think about your program as an institution, you have objectives. And the objectives are based on the constituents of your program. Your students, the alumni, the industry that you serve, the various practitioners who depend upon you. So you set your program objectives if you're an electrical engineering program, mechanical engineering program, computer science program. You set your educational objectives based on the needs of your constituents. Then, if you look at the matrix there, it has 4 components: plan, do, check, and act. So you made your planning, you set your objectives. The doing part comes with your curriculum. So you actually deliver the curriculum to your students graduate from your program, and you check. You check not just with your grades, but you check to assess that the students are able to demonstrate that the outcomes you set for your program are in fact being achieved. And then you use the information in a continuous process through a feedback loop to improve the content of your program, your structure and tools, etc. What the accreditation process does is it allows the institution to create self-studies, review the evidence, and then review it such that it meets the criteria. So in other words, you as an institution, when you come to ABET or you go to NBA, you're saying, here is the evidence. This is who our students are. These are our programs. These are the outcomes. This is how we measure the outcomes and ensure that our students, in fact, and our program is meeting the criteria. And it engages all the constituents. Faculty play a very critical role. They're responsible for demonstrating the outcomes that the students are actually displaying as they go through the program. Industry relies on the outputs, and they look at the outcomes criteria and say, well, the students graduated from an ABET accredited program, therefore they meet the criteria, right? So it's a very holistic approach. And this is what we mean by continuous quality improvement and accreditation. So let's talk about ABET's global engagement, right? So thinking about ABET as a global organization, we have something known as Memoranda of Understanding. As a matter of fact, there are 18 international accreditors. We also have mutual recognition agreements, right? And there are 4 accords. We have the Washington Accord, which deals with engineering. We have the Sydney Accord, which deals with technology. The Dublin Accord deals with engineering technology programs at the 2-year level. So in India, we may call it a diploma. Here we call it a 2-year technician program or associate's degree. Then we have the Seoul Accord, which deals with programs in computing. When you look at the numbers there, for example, under the Washington Accord, you see 20 signatories. So it means there were 20 original signatories. over time, and I'll show you how that evolved. And there are 8 provisional members that belong to them. Similarly, for the Sydney Accord, we have 11 signatories and 2 provisional signatories. Dublin Accord, we have 9 signatories. Seoul Accord, we have 8 signatories and 6 provisional signatories. All of these accords are part of what is known as the International Engineering Alliance. So in India, the accrediting body is the NBA. That is an independent autonomous body, and that body is responsible for accrediting programs. Now, the NBA is a part of the Washington Accord, and the Washington Accord is a part of the International Engineering Alliance. ABET is a part of the Washington Accord. So since the NBA and ABET are both parts of the Washington Accord, they have a mutual recognition agreement that recognizes that graduates that come from NBA accredited Tier 1 programs are considered to be similar to graduates who come from ABET accredited programs under the Washington Accord. So this is the way in which we engage with global education organizations. So when you look at the development of the Washington Accord, originally in 1989, there were 6 countries: Canada, United States, Ireland, United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. And then in the 1990s, we added 2 more, South Africa and Hong Kong. And then as we went to the next decade, in the 2000s, Singapore, Malaysia, Chinese Taipei, Korea, and Japan, right, got added to this. So now if you're keeping track, we have 13 signatories to the Washington Accord. Again, please keep in mind, this means that these countries and the accrediting agencies in these respective countries recognize, they have a mutual recognition agreement that recognize the quality of graduates coming out of the engineering programs in the respective countries. Then in the 2010s, we added 7 more countries, and this is where India came in. So we had India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Turkey, Russia, and Peru that became part of the Washington Accord. And then right now, we have countries with provisional status: Mexico, Costa Rica, Chile, Bangladesh, Thailand, Myanmar, Indonesia, and Philippines. So how does a country move from provisional status to full status? So the team of evaluators, now this is not program accreditation, I'm talking about the Washington Accord. Under the International Engineering Alliance, there is a team that actually goes and visits these countries and ensures that the processes are in alignment with the rest of the signatories of the Washington Accord, right? So it's more or less like the United Nations, where you need to have a very thorough process. They look at all the processes for accreditation. They look at some sample evaluations, and this process takes a number of years. So initially they're provisional, and eventually they become fully accredited. They become a part of the Washington Accord. So again, I think we've covered this. We want to do global accreditation because we want to make the world a better place. Globalization of the economy, industry, and education. And increasingly, if you think about our member societies, IEEE is a global member society with over 400,000 members. You have other societies covering all the different disciplines in engineering and computing, applied natural science, and technology. Furthermore, our team chairs and program evaluators come from all over the world. So it's really important for us to learn from one another, right? Now, if I want to give you another perspective, I think everybody on the call is familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So when you think about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, eliminating poverty, eliminating hunger, good health, quality education, gender equality, innovation, reduced inequality, health in particular has risen to the top, right? With COVID-19, everybody is very concerned about the impact on our health infrastructure. Again, accreditation is a way for you to demonstrate that the programs that you're running, the institutions that you have, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Are all able to provide the infrastructure that is necessary to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I told you ABET is a federation of member societies. We have 36 of them, and you can see all of them on this chart. Together, we represent over 1.5 million practicing professionals. IEEE, incidentally, is the largest member society within ABET. We're responsible, as I'll show you in a few minutes, for about 25% of ABET's programs. ABET is also very closely connected with industry, right? We have industry partners around the world that are responsible for the accreditation criteria. So what is the role of the member societies in ABET? Number one, represent the profession. If you ask who's developing the program criteria, we are, right? IEEE develops the program criteria when it comes to electrical engineering and all the fields of interest in IEEE. We're also responsible for governance, as I'll show you in a few minutes. We appoint the delegates to the ABET board, the board of delegates, and they in turn elect the members of the board of directors. I serve on the board of directors right now as a director of the engineering delegation. So I represent all the societies with the ABET accredited engineering programs around the world. We also nominate accreditation commissioners, namely the team chairs, and we recruit and assign program evaluators. So before we get into the organizational structure of ABET, I think it's good to look at it from the top. So there are two areas. One is operational, that's the one you see on the right, and the other one is strategic that you see on the left. So the strategic part consists of the board of directors and the board of delegates. The operational part consists of the commissions. There are 4 commissions: applied and natural science, computing, engineering, engineering and technology. So the commissions do all of the work. So they lead the review teams, they're responsible for the final accreditation actions. They actually implement the accreditation policies and they propose changes to the criteria. The evaluators are the ones who come to the programs to review the programs. That includes the team members. They make the initial accreditation recommendations, and they are the face of ABET, so that's the largest pool of volunteers. Now, if you move to the left, you have the 2 boards, the board of delegates and the board of directors. So who constitutes the board of delegates? The board of delegates come from the 36 member societies of ABET. So they nominate individuals, and they come from industry, they come from different walks of life, from education, but they're all nominated by member societies. They decide policy, they decide procedures, and they ultimately approve criteria. Now, the board of directors is a much smaller body. It consists of 12 members. So it consists of the president, the past president, the president-elect. There's a secretary and a treasurer. Then you have 4 directors. So where are the 4 directors from? From the 4 areas: engineering, technology, computing, applied and natural science. And then when you think about the directors represent their area delegation. So for example, I'm the director of the engineering delegation. I was elected by the engineering area delegation to represent all 32 member societies, including IEEE, right? So it's not just IEEE that I represent all the 32 member societies that have programs in engineering worldwide. It's really important to keep in mind that 100% of accreditation decisions are made by volunteers from ABET's professional societies, right? So this is completely unbiased, completely neutral, completely open process. So the other characteristics of ABET, every year, there's approximately 100,000 students who graduate from ABET accredited programs. We accredit programs at the master's, bachelor's, and associate's levels, right? Another important point, the peer review is done by members of these professional societies. They are the evaluators, right? We come from academia and industry. And we are not compensated financially in any way, right? We do this voluntarily. Accreditation is tied to continuous improvement, self-assessment, as well as evidence of learning outcome assessment. And very important, our processes are ISO certified, ISO 9001:2015 certified. So we have very strong quality control checks in place to look at every step of our process, because we need to demonstrate this to ISO in order to show them that we in fact have a robust and rigorous process for assessing accreditation programs around the world. So some numbers for you. At the end of 2019, we had over 4,000 programs in 800 institutions, roughly about 80% of them in the US and about 20% of them outside the United States. Now, if you break it down by commission and country, you can see that globally, about 70% of the programs come from the Engineering Accreditation Commission. That is the yellow bar, right? About 15% come from technology, 13% from computing, and about 3% from applied and natural science. Now, you can also break this down in terms of institution, and that is very similar. About 45% of institutions globally have ABET accredited programs in engineering, right? And the statistics can also be seen outside the US in terms of programs and outside the US in terms of institutions. I thought you would be interested, since the audience is primarily from India, to know how many programs we have are ABET accredited from India. So if you're looking at this chart, you'll see 34 programs. So in case you're wondering where these programs come from and who these programs are, if you go to the ABET website, www.abet.org, and you can just search there, and you can search by country, you can search by institution, you can search by commission, you can search by program. So I searched by country for India, and I wanted to show you what I came up with. This is publicly available, so anybody on the call can go to the ABET website as I'm talking and search. So this is what I was able to download for India, the 34 programs from India. And the reason I'm showing you this is I want you to see certain important pieces of information here. So if you look at the first program here, it says Bharat University, Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research. That is the name of the institution. So the program that is accredited there, one of the programs, is in civil engineering. It is a bachelor's degree program. And you look at the accreditation dates, it says October 1, 2015 to present. In other words, there was a visit there in 2014. And based on the visit, the program was accredited starting in October 1, 2015. So they're actually accredited currently. Then it shows you the date of the next visit, 2023-2024. So what it means is that there will be a review of the program in the year 2023-2024 in order for the program to be accredited for the next cycle, right? And so on. So you can see all along this table here where the programs come from. For example, there is a program in biotechnology, and this is in Chennai. It's at the Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute. And this is only accredited under general criteria by ANSAC. So you can see the commission that accredits it. You can also see the accord if it is relevant. The Computer Science and Engineering program comes under the Seoul Accord and the Computing and Accreditation Commission. So you get the idea how this works, right? So commissions are responsible for specifying the criteria. The program evaluators go and implement that. And then the institution is able to say that the program that they have is accredited under ABET criteria, which corresponds to that particular commission. So feel free to look this up on your own. There's 34 programs from India. The second page, again, I can show you more programs here. So you have VIT University with a lot of programs, the Power Institute of Technology, and the programs continue to grow from India. Okay. So what are some of the areas that we're seeing? These are some of the new areas that we're seeing in ABET: construction management, cybersecurity. And yes, we actually accredit programs in chemistry, physics, biology, and geology. They come under the Applied and Natural Science Commission. Food science, facility management, mathematics, environmental science. And keeping in mind, again, that accreditation is all about quality, right? It assures industry, it assures the constituents that the quality is being met. Okay. Now I'm going to pivot and talk to you about IEEE's role. Since I've given you an idea about ABET's global engagement, I want to talk to you about how IEEE is engaged in this. So for a minute, let's take a look at IEEE's mission and vision. You know that IEEE is a global society. We foster technological innovation and excellence for the benefit of humanity. Advancing technology for humanity is our mission. And when we look at IEEE, 400,000 members that are spread all over the world, producing standards, publications, and conferences, universally recognized for our contributions to technology, but more importantly, technical professionals who are improving global conditions. If you look at IEEE's strategic plan, you see our core values on the left: trust, service to humanity, integrity, global community building, growth and nurturing, and partnership. But on the right, I highlighted a few things that are relevant to education: enhancing public understanding of engineering, be a trusted source of educational service, provide opportunities for career and professional development, and inspire a worldwide audience by building these agile and nimble communities, informing public policy. So I think all of these goals show you why IEEE is so interested in accreditation. But let's dive a little bit deeper. IEEE, again, is a founding member of ABET. IEEE does not accredit programs. ABET accredits programs, but IEEE provides the evaluators, provides the delegates who in turn serve ABET and helps accredit the programs. If you look at our scope and accreditation, IEEE is responsible for approximately 800 programs. If you remember, I said ABET has about 4,000 programs, right? So that's almost, one-fifth, about 20% of ABET's programs. And it covers all these areas that you see on the screen, from bioengineering to telecommunications engineering. So what does that mean? It means that there are volunteers from IEEE who are specifying the exact program criteria that graduates need to meet in order to be ABET accredited. So if you say, I'm graduated from an institution in systems engineering, well, IEEE had a role to play in that, right? The other question is, why are we interested in this, right? Remember I said there's about 100,000 graduates that come out of ABET accredited programs? By being involved in this, IEEE has a voice in determining the knowledge, skills, and abilities that these graduates. Can you mute, please? Can you mute, please? Can you mute, please? Yeah. Thank you. IEEE has a voice in determining what the knowledge, skills, and abilities are for successful entry into the field. Second, by doing this, we have a steady flow of individuals, professionals, who are able to go into industry and actually practice. And third, remember I said our team chairs and evaluators come from all over the world. They have an opportunity for professional development. They can actually cross the disciplinary sectors, work with other teams, and work on supporting IEEE's mission, advancing technology for humanity. Here's just a few testimonials from IEEE members, why they think IEEE should be involved, from industry to government to academia. Everybody says that this is really important for IEEE because, again, two things, quality and ensuring that graduates are ready for professional practice. Here's just a chart for you showing the numbers. On the left, you see the number of international programs. It's about 873 out of 4,000, and that keeps growing. And on the right, you see IEEE. So IEEE has close to 1,000 programs out of the 4,000. 800 of them are in the United States, and about 200 of them are outside the United States. So this is a major, major initiative for IEEE, and it takes a lot of volunteers around the world. We have hundreds of thousands of hours of volunteer work to make accreditation a reality. Okay. Now let's talk about ABET accreditation criteria, right? So when you think about ABET accreditation criteria, I want you to think immediately about students, because remember, the purpose of accreditation is to demonstrate that your graduates are ready for professional practice and that industry is assured of the quality of your programs. So when your students come into your institutions, you counsel them, you put them into different streams, then you have different policies and procedures. In India, you might say that the first-year student needs to take the following courses. There's a curriculum. There's faculty who specify how the curriculum is taught, what kind of evaluations are used, what kind of examinations are used, what labs are taught, what hands-on experiences are there, what are the facilities and technologies that we use to make all this a reality, and how does the institution, the dean, the president, the vice president, the provost, etc., how do they come together to help them? And most importantly, how do the faculty actually deliver the curriculum so that the students are able to demonstrate these learning outcomes? So this is a very interactive process. So the students are demonstrating the learning outcomes as they go through the curriculum. The faculty are learning as they go through this themselves. They're doing research to advance the field, and they're taking that into the classroom to help the students demonstrate that they actually achieve the outcomes. And you can see that this is a process that is a closed loop. So you're constantly looking to improve this process. The criteria are really not mysterious, but they come from the fundamental principles that I've just explained to you here. So when you look at the ABET criteria are in fact directly related to those principles that I talked about. So students are criterion 1. Student outcomes, program objectives, student outcomes, and continuous improvement are criterions 2 through 4. Curriculum happens to be criterion 5. Faculty are criterion 6. Facilities is criterion 7. Institutional support is criterion 8. And policies and procedures are the ones that hold all this together as a glue that holds this together. Now, if you pay attention to these 8 right here, you'll notice that these are known as the general criteria. And then depending on the program, if the program is in electrical or mechanical or civil, you may have additional program criteria that the program has to satisfy in order to be accredited, right? The ABET criteria are different for each commission. So there are 4 commissions, they have different criteria. Some criteria are common, they're known as harmonized criteria. Other criteria are specific to each of the commissions. Typically, we make normal annual changes to the criteria. These are minor changes. But before we make any changes, the criteria are published. There is a 1-year period in which the public can comment on it. Then the commissions take that into account and actually implement the changes to the criteria. So the ABET criteria that are common across the criteria are students, program objectives, student outcomes, continuous improvement, curriculum, faculty, facilities, and institutional support. Right? So this is what we are known as general criteria for ABET. And then we have program criteria. Now I want to pivot and talk to you about the NBA criteria. Those of you from institutions in India that are tier 1 or tier 2 institutions are probably looking at this saying, yes, I'm familiar with this, right? So these are the NBA criteria. Now notice there is a few critical differences. In the NBA criteria, each of the program level criteria has a certain mark or weightage, right? For example, vision, mission, program objectives have 50 marks. Program, curriculum, learning processes have 100 marks and so forth. And then institution level criteria, 8, 9, and 10. And then when you look at how the NBA accreditation process is implemented, you need to have, for example, a minimum number. I believe the number has to be, its grades that they give you has to be 75 or greater in order for you to be NBA accredited. And that has to cover at least 7 of your criteria without any concerns, weaknesses, or deficiencies. And then you can probably have 3 concerns in order for you to be accredited, in order for you to have the full 6-year accreditation. ABET criteria and the way ABET criteria is implemented is a little bit different here. So even though on the surface it may appear that we have similar program level criteria, in ABET, the way it is implemented is a little bit different, right? So you look at the program criteria here, and I've identified a few things here. So engineering knowledge, application, problem analysis, identify, formulate, research, etc. Conduct investigations, modern tool usage, engineering society. So there's some commonalities between ABET and NBA. Ethics, individual and teamwork, communication, project management, lifelong learning. So there's a lot of commonalities in terms of terminologies. However, the implementation with ABET criteria, this is the way we do it in ABET. So in ABET, we have ABET criteria for accrediting programs and that looks at assessment, it looks at curriculum, it looks at resources. We also have something known as APPM, which stands for the Accreditation Policy and Procedure Manual. So this goes through eligibility, how the evaluations are conducted, how the information is released, appeals, and so forth. Very nuts and bolts, right? How do you actually do the accreditation? Very important. If you're a program and you are seeking accreditation, let's say you're not previously accredited, you need to demonstrate what is known as readiness review, right? So if you're a new program, remember those 34 programs that I showed you in India that were ABET accredited? The first time they were accredited, they needed to go through what is known as readiness review. So they have to submit a draft self-study report. And this is usually done before November 1st of each year. And when they do this, there is a small team in ABET that looks at the draft and comes back to them with 3 possible recommendations. It may be good, you're good to go ahead and make a request for accreditation. Or maybe you need to address a few things before you come up and ask for accreditation, or you're not ready yet because you really need to work on a few things, right? So we do this. This is not an accreditation review. This is a readiness review to help programs become prepared to apply for ABET accreditation. This only applies for programs that are initially applying for ABET accreditation. Then, assuming that you meet these, the draft self-study and you're invited by ABET, now you need to submit a request for evaluation by January 31. Now, this has to be submitted with the signature of the chief executive officer of your institution. It may be the correspondent, maybe the president, maybe the dean, but whoever is the chief of that officer, the institution. Second, you also have to provide one official transcript of a graduate. You need to have at least one graduate before you seek accreditation, and it needs to be in English if the program name is not in English, right? The team that actually comes and visits you consists of the following representatives. It consists of a program evaluator. So if you're looking at the bottom of my screen, it says PEV for CE, for civil engineering. So you say, who is this PEV? Where do they come from? It actually comes from ASCE. That's a member society that is responsible for selecting, training, and appointing evaluators in civil engineering. Similarly, for electrical engineering, IEEE is responsible for appointing those evaluators. Then you have a team leader who's a commissioner. So this person is responsible for coordinating the team. You may have multiple commissioners. Why do you have multiple commissioners? Let's say a program has, an institution has programs in engineering and computer science and applied and natural science. Remember what I said about the commissions. The engineering commission is only responsible for programs in engineering. The computing commission is responsible for programs in computer science. The applied and natural science commission is responsible for programs in mathematics and physics and geology, facilities management, and so forth. So you may have multiple team chairs and multiple teams, right? This could be a very complex visit that is coming. The process itself is a 2-year process. So if you're looking at the left of my graph right here, if you're a program that is not initially accredited, you have to submit your readiness review by November. By January, you submit your request for evaluation. And once you do that, over the next 4 months, you prepare your self-study. Right? Once you do the self-study, there is a visit that takes place. Now, I'll talk about how this is happening in 2020, because there are no physical visits. All our visits in 2020 are virtual. Then once the visit is done, by the time the team leaves the institution, they leave you with what is known as an initial draft statement. And in the period between the time the team leaves and the draft statement that actually arrives in the mail to you, the institution can actually go back and respond to the comments that are made by the visiting team. So if you had a shortcoming, a concern, a weakness, or a deficiency, you can start addressing those. So that is the way the process works. And then eventually in May and June, the commission will actually meet to make a decision on the accreditation. Once that is done, the accreditation decision is notified in August. So if you start in November of the previous year, this is an 18 to 21 month process. So you really need to be thinking 18 to 21 months in advance before you seek accreditation. And remember the criteria again, you need to have at least one graduate before you seek accreditation. You need to have graduated at least one person before you seek accreditation, okay? So let's talk about how we're adapting to changes in the 2020 cycle, right? So before March of 2020, all of these things were happening in face-to-face environments. Teams were visiting campuses, there were reviews being done, and then these recommendations were being made. But after COVID-19, we completely went into a social distancing mode, right? So we have socially connected, but we're completely socially distant. My campus, for example, all the programs are being run virtually, right? I've not set foot on my campus since March of 2020. So how is ABET adapting to this changing landscape to conduct ABET visits? Unlike some of the other accrediting agencies, ABET said we will continue to do ABET accreditation, but we will do that in a 100% virtual way. So how are we doing this? We know that faculty and staff are working remotely. We know courses are transitioning to either online or hybrid. In some cases, labs are unavailable. They're doing either remote or virtual labs. Grading systems have changed. Students are studying under very difficult circumstances. And in fact, we know that data is very difficult to collect and document under these circumstances. So ABET understands this. And we keep in mind that we're not evaluating how COVID-19 has impacted your program. We're actually evaluating how the program is satisfying the criteria over the entire period. So what this means is, number one, there is going to be no physical visits to any on-site locations, right? So if you are following what I just said before, the member societies select the evaluators, the team chairs, etc. All of these people are operating virtually. It's happening right now, right? There are virtual ABET visits. So if you're a program in India and you're hosting a visit, your team is virtually meeting with your students, virtually meeting with your faculty, virtually meeting with your constituents to conduct the accreditation. Remarkable. This is a remarkable experiment when you consider that there's about 800 programs in a given year that we accredit. And each program, there's probably about 10 or so volunteers. So that's about 8,000 people that are involved in the accreditation process who need to be trained in order to do this virtually, who need to be trained in order to come and deliver this effectively. Materials. How do you do this in a virtual environment? Everything has to be done online through Dropbox, through email, etc. Nothing physical, no physical formats. How do you evaluate labs? Right? This is a very interesting question. So what ABET's come up with is a process by which the institutions will provide virtual tours of the facilities and labs, interviews. Just like I'm doing the webinar right now, all of these will be handled virtually, right? So this is the protocol that we're following. Meetings will occur virtually. We're using Zoom rather than WebEx. Incidentally, I was going to suggest to you, with WebEx, we've been having a lot of issues with technology with WebEx updates. I find Zoom to be a much more user-friendly, intuitive platform. So ABET is recommending that we use Zoom as a default platform. And in fact, the last few visits that we've done, I talked to a few team chairs and evaluators. They were telling me that the system worked flawlessly as they went through the evaluation. So remember again, that teams are not going to be judging the programs based on how you responded to COVID-19. Rather, we'll be looking at programs and processes over the duration of the entire accreditation cycle. And we are going to be very reasonable in our approach. For example, in March of 2020, when you went virtual, if an institution came to us and said, look, we were not able to run the exams this time, so we don't have any data, and we're using this alternate set of evaluation to figure out how the students have actually met the outcomes, ABET is fine with that, right? ABET is being very reasonable with accommodating those kinds of requests because we're looking at overall how you satisfy the program criteria and the accreditation criteria. The virtual visits have been scheduled between November. We just started about a month ago. We've done maybe about a third of our visits. Usually we're done by December, but since we started in November, we're going to go through February of 2021. Now, typically the ABET visit is a 2.5-day, 3-day type of process. You start on a Saturday afternoon and you end on a Tuesday night, Tuesday evening. But now that we're virtual, we're extending it over 5 days, especially because everybody and everyone is virtual. The evaluators are virtual, the students are virtual, the labs are virtual. So we said there's no reason for us to compress this in 3 days. Time zones may be different, but we want to try and do this within 1 week, right? So this is how we're doing the visits in 2020. And the support and display materials, right? The only requirement here is that the program must make all the materials available at least 1 month prior to the start of the visit. Now remember, in a pre-COVID world, we might have actually gone to the institution and looked at notebooks and looked at books and looked at the library and so forth. In this case, all of the materials are scanned and available online. That's on Dropbox. And the team can begin looking at that a month before the start of the visit. What about labs, right? We felt like we needed to give training, so we spent between June and November this year, we actually trained the institutions, we trained the evaluators to make sure that they all understood how to do this in a virtual environment. So we had sample sessions, we had pilot sessions to show an institution, to show a program, how they could virtually demonstrate compliance with the criteria, right? Facility tours. Really proud of ABET for doing this. So when you do a typical self-study report, I'll speak about electrical engineering, maybe you have a power lab, communication lab, instrumentation lab, controls lab, microprocessor lab, and so on. So typically you'll have a number of lab stations, you'll have equipment, you'll have experiments that you're running, right? So all of this is listed in the self-study report. What we asked the institutions to do is to have the faculty member, whoever is teaching that lab, to produce a simple video. We didn't ask for anything that is studio quality. So just take your smartphone and create a simple video that you can then upload to a platform and share with the PEV. Now the video should be able to tell us what is in the lab, what kind of courses are supported in the lab, what instructional equipment is used, how you demonstrate safety. This is a big part of accreditation, right? And then provide that video as a sample to the accreditation team. Now, incidentally, I was telling you about my university. We went completely virtual. At this time of the year, I usually invite students, prospective students, to come and tour our labs. to get an idea of what kind of labs we have and so forth. So in a virtual format, none of that is possible, right? We can't do face-to-face labs. So instead, what we did is we did exactly what ABET is asking us to do here, is I had the faculty create these labs. I created a virtual open house, a lab tour, and I'm happy to share that with all of you after this webinar. You can go on the tour. You can see all of the labs in my university and see what kind of experiments we run, how the faculty are doing these, and so forth. And then later this week, on Thursday, we're actually going to have a face-to-face session live on Zoom. Live on Zoom, I said face-to-face, make that virtual, right? All the students are going to be communicating with one another and with the future students about the problems they face, the challenges they face. This is what we do in ABET, right? During the actual visit, what we may do is to say, we'd like you to walk through, right? So some of you are familiar with GoPro cameras and so on. We may actually ask the faculty member to put on a camera and walk through the lab and show us the equipment so we can actually see, turn on the equipment, show us how it is working, etc. So we know that what you showed us in the video before us is actually there for the students to work through. It's very important we have good connections. It's very important that we have good locations for interviews. So we ask that you set up a conference room where all the AV hardware is working correctly, and you have IT staff on standby to be able to work with your faculty and staff. We have that on the ABET side with the institutions. And please remember, the team is not gathering in any one place, right? The mechanical evaluator might be in one part of the world. The electrical evaluator might be a different part of the world. Computer science evaluator might be in a whole different place. The institution is in a different place. Truly remarkable experiment, right? When this year is done, when we get to 2021 and we vote on the commissions, this is going to be a blueprint for the way in which we are going to deliver programs, for the way in which we accredit programs, for the way in which we actually ascertain that the quality of education and technical education is being maintained across our programs. Really remarkable experience. Very proud of all of my colleagues, all of you, for participating in this. So as I get to the end of my remarks here, I want to take you to the National Academy of Engineering. And this is a publication called Changing the Conversation that you can actually download from nae.org. And it's a small paragraph from NAE that I want to share with you. It says, no profession unleashes the spirit of innovation like engineering. From research to real-world applications, engineers are constantly discovering how to improve our lives by creating bold new solutions that connect science to life in unexpected forward-thinking ways. And few have such a direct and positive impact on people's everyday lives, and few turn so many ideas into so many realities. We are counting on engineers and their imaginations to help us meet the needs of the 21st century. If I think about ABET accreditation, if I think about IEEE, advancing technology for humanity, and the work we do, and how we changed literally overnight to run the accreditation process, and we're doing this without any break in our processes, it is truly remarkable. And I'm very proud of what we do as engineers and computer scientists to make this a reality. Now, I know I went through a lot of information in a very short period of time. If you're interested in more information, this link that you see on your screen has a number of short webinars. There's actually 6 of them that talk about how you set program objectives, how you go about assessing student outcomes, how do you do continuous improvement, how do you use this to improve the program both for your graduates as well as for your industry practitioners. And finally, how do you prepare for an ABET visit during a virtual pandemic limited situation? So please take some time. It's completely free. These webinars you can attend at your leisure. You can pause, rewind, and learn from these. I hope the remarks that I made were helpful to you. I would be happy to take a few questions. I want to share this slide with you just for a minute to give you my contact information, s.ramesh@IEEE.org. I'm also on LinkedIn if you want to reach out to me. If you have specific questions about international program accreditation by ABET, please feel free to contact Ms. Sherry Hirsch, shirsh@abet.org. Right? So with that said, thank you very much for your attention. I will stop sharing my screen at this point and open it up to
Yes, sir.
Dr. Davis.
Yes, Professor Ramesh.
Hello, sir.
Can just 1 minute, 1 minute. Professor Ramesh, how much time can you spend for the questions? Because there are many questions are there.
Yeah, we can probably spend about half an hour at least, minimum, right? Minimum. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sir, sir, can I ask one question?
Hello. Not everybody's time, please. Sudhir Kumar Garu, please monitor.
Yes, sir. I think Dharmaya Devarapalli.
Yes,
would you like to ask some questions? Yeah, please.
Yes,
somebody could read out the question, that would be great, because I can't. The audio is coming through very, very low.
Sir, I'm asking through not text. Sir, I think today is a very fortunate day for us. We have very good analysis method of USC and international standards, sir. Sir, you are giving a wonderful opportunity for our Indian Institute. Sir, you are mentioning 4 commissions and engineering, I think, technology. What is the difference between engineering and engineering technology, sir? Can you elaborate on that? And then our institute got NBA, sir, and our institute also accredited with NAC and so many accreditations. And our institute also seeking to accreditation for ABET also, sir. Please explain it. Our institute will be in engineering or engineering technology. Please, sir. This is my question. Sorry, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that question. To put it very simply, when you think about programs in engineering, most programs in engineering will begin with foundational courses in mathematics, physics, and chemistry, right? And these are typically calculus-based. I don't know, we're getting a little bit of audio noise there. I don't know if you could, can you hear me? Yeah. So these are typically calculus-based courses in engineering. And then when you think about technology, the graduates who graduate from technology programs typically tend to work in more applied fields, right? And the mathematics background, the physics, the science background for the technology programs, you'll find is very different than what is required for engineering programs. So when you look at criteria, remember the 8 criteria that we talked about: students, objectives, outcomes, continuous improvement, faculty, curriculum, facilities, institutional support, etc. So you have the same 8 criteria for both engineering and technology. However, if you're graduating from an ABET accredited engineering technology program, there are certain things that will be required to be met under those criteria. Similarly, the things that need to be met under the engineering criteria will be different, right? So who specifies that? The commission specifies that. And then if you take one step backward and say, who is the commission? The commission is made up of representatives from the professional societies. So for example, in civil engineering, it would be ASCE, the American Society for Civil Engineers. For mechanical engineering, it would be ASME, because these are member societies of ABET. For electrical engineering, it would be IEEE, and so forth. The second part of your question was you have accredited programs that are either NBA accredited, you have NAAC, and so forth, accreditation. ABET accreditation, I emphasize, is voluntary, right? And when you seek ABET accreditation, there is a process that you go through for readiness review. And in India, the NBA is the recognized accreditor for in India, right? The NBA is part of the Washington Accord, and particularly tier 1 institutions in India. So when you applied for ABET accreditation, there is a form that you fill out that says that you have the permission of the authority in India to be able to seek accreditation from ABET, right? ABET does not come and tell you to seek accreditation. You are seeking accreditation from ABET. And once you submit that, ABET will go through the process. The readiness review, very simply, is like a mini self-study, right? So in the readiness review, you would say, you would describe the institution. You would say, our institution has 8 programs that we offer. We have this number of students. We have this number of faculty. This is how we deliver the programs. This is how we assess the outcomes. These are the facilities in the labs we have, and so forth. So it's like a mini self-study. Once you send that, within ABET, there is a team of adjunct staff, directors, and others. So look at that. I said the deadline is November 1. So within about 3 weeks, you get a response back from them, and it could be one of three responses. It could be, you're ready, everything looks good, please go ahead and request an evaluation, or you need to work on a few things before you request an evaluation, because we do not want the institutions that are not ready to actually go through the process. We want to ensure that all the institutions that are going through the process are in fact ready to be evaluated. Now, please keep in mind that readiness for review doesn't mean that there is a guarantee of accreditation. It simply means that you're ready to be reviewed, right? And that's all it does. So I hope that answers your question. We have programs around the world that seek ABET accreditation. As I mentioned, there's about 4,000 programs and continues to grow. The international programs that are under ABET, at the moment, it's about 25%, about 1,000 out of 4,000.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful explanation, sir. Thank you.
And there are
My
a couple of questions from
Hey, one of the question is this, sir.
Hello.
If somebody can monitor and tell me.
Yeah. Professor Raghavan has made two questions, sir. One is on IITs, whether they are going for ABET accreditation or not, is one question. And one more question from Raghavan, sir, is will VIT Vellore is chosen as
Sudhir Kumar and Ramesh, I request not to name the institutions here. Here we are going for a generalized talk for accreditation. Let us not put the name of the institution and question about that.
So I'm trying to, so the question I had was from Professor Raghavan, and I believe the first question related to why certain institutions are seeking or not seeking. I was trying to get the gist of that.
Yes, sir.
All right. So again, let's keep in mind that accreditation is completely voluntary. So it is completely up to the institution, right? Just like the NBA has characteristics for tier 1, tier 2 institutions and so on, it is entirely up to the institution to seek accreditation. The value of accreditation, the value proposition, Dr. Raghavan, as I said, is demonstrated from what industry seeks. As I said, if you were to look at any industry, and I'm not talking monolithically about one particular sector, I'm talking about transportation, communications, power, energy, sustainability, you name it, any industry, when they hire graduates, let's say engineering graduates, the first thing they want to know is that if the graduates are ready to practice, if they're ready to design, if they're ready to test, if they're ready to analyze, if they're ready to manufacture. So all of those characteristics are the ones that you would expect someone graduating from an ABET accredited program to demonstrate once they get into that industry. So to answer your question, we do not dictate, we do not ask programs to come and be accredited. It is entirely up to the institution and the program whether or not they seek accreditation, right? So.
Yes, somebody was actually asking a question. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Professor Mahadevan. I would like to know the main part of the engineering education is practicals, and that is taking a very big beating in the COVID.
So if your question, thank you, Professor Mahadevan. I think your question is, how do we deliver hands-on education in a virtual world, right?
Yes.
That is a challenge. That is, undeniably, that is a huge challenge. I'll speak for my
intention how the accreditation would look into it, because the students don't really get an hands-on.
Okay, let me give you one piece of statistic first, right? Out of the ABET accredited programs, if you go and look right now, remember I said you could go to the ABET site and look up programs that are accredited, right? And this is even before COVID-19. So if you look at ABET right now, there's well over 20 programs, over 20, completely online ABET accredited engineering programs. Let me repeat. There's already 20 online programs. And I'm not going to mention any names, but you can certainly look up those programs. So how do these programs do it? So what these programs have done, Professor Mahadevan, is to create an environment where labs can be either done remotely or virtually, or a combination of both. For example, in IEEE, we have opportunities for students to work with what is known as virtual instrumentation. So you can use software like LabVIEW and MATLAB and so forth. You can actually create an instrument in software. And then with the addition of some interfacing boards, you may be able to actually create those modules that allow you to do simple experiments in electronics and communications. As a matter of fact, this particular program that has had an online accredited bachelor's degree program now for, I think, at least 2 cycles, so 12 years, they do almost every lab except a clean room, right, where you do fabrication. Except for that lab, all the other labs are being done virtually. Remarkable, right? Of course, it is expensive. It is not easy. So if you say, well, how am I going to do that with thousands of students? The answer is, it is going to be very expensive to deploy. It's going to be very expensive to monitor and so forth. Now, when ABET evaluates the program, remember now we're talking about the criteria. So in the criteria, you look at curriculum. So the curriculum consists of mathematics and basic sciences. It consists of engineering topics. Then it consists of a culminating design experience. And it just says, how does a program deliver all of these things? So if a program is going virtual, which I suspect all of you are right now in India, you should be able to say, our student in, say, electronics and communication engineering, or instrumentation, control engineering, power engineering, etc. These are lab experiments. This is how they're doing it. One of the ways we've done it at my university is to use virtual labs where students can actually use kits. We use kits from, it's called AD2, Analog Discovery Kit 2. You can also look to the IEEE for resources. In July, we held a 1-week symposium on virtual teaching and virtual learning. This is completely free. You can actually go to IEEE TV on demand and look at the entire 1 week. So we had experts from all over the world who asked similar questions like you. How do we deliver this? How do we monitor this and so forth? Is it ideal? Probably not. But think about someone, right now we have no options with COVID-19 because of safety and health reasons. We have to do this virtually. But some of the reasons why we do this, we have a lot of people in the US who serve in the armed forces. So they get deployed to countries and so forth. And so when they're outside, how do they do the labs? How do they do their lectures and so forth? So this is one way by which they can proceed with their education without interruption, right? So it's all about accessibility. It's all about providing an affordable, accessible education to them. What I would say to you is that this is going to be our biggest challenge going forward out of COVID-19. When we come out of COVID-19, maybe when there's a vaccine at this time next year, and we start meeting face-to-face and so forth, we will still be looking at the lessons learned from these virtual hybrid experiences to see how we can make it better for students and faculty.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Sir, can you please elaborate regarding the readiness review, sir? Sir,
sure, Dr. Anand. Do you have a specific question?
Sir, we are twice MBA accredited from Computer Science and Engineering Department.
Dr. Anirudha's question is, please elaborate about the readiness review for the computer science.
So Dr. Anurag, if you go to the ABET website, if you can do that right now, and under search, type in readiness review, and that'll take you to another page that has a list of required documents and timelines. And it'll show you there's a template that you need to fill out. As I said, it is like a mini self-study, right? So you'll have to respond to questions. It's pretty much like responding to questions. So it'll ask you how you recruit your students, how you advise your students, what processes do you have in place for your faculty recruitment, what is your curriculum like, what percentage is lab, what is your equipment, how is it accessed, what are the facilities. So it'll be the kind of questions that you should be able to answer very easily for any student who's seeking to come to your institution. And then that'll give you an idea too. Also, in the last slide on my webinar, I had a link to ABET webinars, right? So there is a webinar there. It's a 10-minute webinar that you can easily go through that says how you can prepare for a readiness review. So please look at both of those. I think you'll be able to do that very easily from that.
Okay.
My pleasure.
If there are no questions, we'll go for a vote of thanks by Deepika Rani.
Sir, one last question, sir.
Go ahead. Samir, you go ahead.
Yes, sir. This is Samir, ComSoc and SPS Joint Chapter of Isaac Bay. Sir, how often do we need ABET accreditation? Like, so I have seen in the list Indian universities who are ABET accredited. I see that one institution has a renewal period of 8 years, while the other one is having a period of 6 years. So, what exactly the renewal period?
Well, thank you. Maybe I didn't clarify this. So, the way you looked at it, you looked at the initial accreditation date, correct? And then you looked at when the accreditation, when the next review is. But I would not necessarily assume from that is the accreditation period, okay? So typically, this is how it works. If the program gets evaluated, and then after the due process is complete, the commissions vote on that. Let us say there are no shortcomings, and shortcomings in terms of weaknesses and deficiencies. There may be concerns, and a concern is not a high-level shortcoming. A weakness and a deficiency is a critical shortcoming. As long as the program only has concerns, and the commission has already voted on that, the typical period of accreditation is 6 years, okay? Now, if the program has a weakness, sometimes, when the initial draft statement is given, the program is visited, the team leaves, and you have a weakness. So during the period between the time that the team is left and the commission meets, you may be able to address the weakness. I'll give you an example. Let us say you've done some assessment, but you have not closed the loop in terms of continuous improvement. So the evaluator looks at the data and says, you have a lot of data, but I'm not able to tell from the data how you're utilizing it to improve your program. You have not done the analysis, have not done the assessment yet. So you say, thank you, and you spend the time between February and May to do the analysis, and you go back and say, we looked at the data, everything looks good. Actually, our process works really well, but this is based on an evaluation of the data. That is a continuous improvement process loop, right? So this information goes back to the commission. The commission looks at it, and then they look at the initial draft statement. They go back to the team and they say, look, this is what the program said. It appears that the weakness is being addressed. What do you think? Now, they get a response back from the team, chair, who says, yes, based on the additional information that is provided, we believe that the weakness is now mitigated, right? Then the commission is able to vote on it. However, if the weakness remains, sometimes the commission will come back and say, the program says that their plan is to collect data and to evaluate the data to make improvement. They've collected 1 semester worth of data, but we do not have the confidence that they've actually done this over a period of time. They need to do this over 1 year, 2 years, and so on to demonstrate that the process is working. So the weakness remains. Okay. Now what happens is the commission has a choice. They can look at this and say, do we need to revisit the program? Is this something that needs to be verified by another visit? Or is this something that can be verified by the program submitting what is known as an interim report? So they may give them a 3-year cycle, right, for an interim report, which is called an IR or an IV. So typically the program may be 6 years or it could be 3 years. Now, just to give you an idea of statistics, on the engineering side, which is where most of the programs are, about 70% of the programs are, when the team walks out the door, probably about 70 to 75% of the programs have some shortcoming, right? about 70 to 75% of the programs have some shortcoming. By the time the due process is done 6 months later, that number drops down to less than 5%. Okay. So the continuous improvement process is how that continuous improvement can actually help that team breakthrough. And then eventually, when the commission votes on it, that is when the process is final. So the so-called NGR, next general review, 6 years, I'd say about 80% of the programs get NGRs, okay? Now, again, this is not a ranking system, keep in mind. They're not allowed to go out and say, you know, we passed ABET, right? No, you met ABET accreditation, and as a result, your next review will occur in this time. So when you see that 8-year window, it probably means that there was an interim report or an interim visit during that period. And then since then, right, if you subtract back from that, you'll get it, but you'll never know. You know, that is confidential information between the institution and ABET. Right? That's how we protect the sanctity of the process. But you see, the whole thing is based on trust. So the evaluators are selected by the societies, they're trained, and they're unbiased, they're neutral, they're not compensated in any way. So if the institution has an issue with the recommendation that is coming out of the team, they can always go back, they can appeal it with data, right? It's all based on data. So you have to be able to demonstrate with data. And if you have a concern, there may be a lot of reasons why you have, right? You know, for example, you go to an institution. I've been an evaluator, so I've visited a lot of programs around the world. You see the faculty, and you look at, let's say there's 5 faculty in a department, okay? Just for example, I'm not going to name any institutions. 5 faculty in a department. 4 of them look like they're going to be retiring in the next year, 4 of the 5 faculty, right? So now there's 1 faculty member left who has just been hired. 4 faculty are going to be retiring and leaving. So now there is a natural question, what is the plan for the institution to replace these faculty? What is the plan for the institution to ensure that there's stability and continuity to be sustainable as you go forward? Right? So the question might be under criterion 6, under faculty, saying, right now there are 5 faculty, everybody seems to be doing a great job, programs are running, but I understand that 4 of the 5 faculty are going to be retiring next year. So there is a concern that the faculty criterion may not be met. So now the institution responds and says, this is our plan for recruiting faculty. We've got offers out. Because of COVID-19, nobody was able to do interviews. And after COVID-19 has passed, we'll finish the interviews, we'll hire them. I may or may not buy that argument. I may say, well, go ahead and do a virtual interview and hire the faculty. But you see how the process works, right? The process is very interactive. It's based on trust, and it's based on improving the quality. Every single person involved in the process is there to improve the quality of the program for the students, for the industry, and for the graduates. I hope that is helpful.
Okay. Now let us go for a vote of thanks by Dr. Professor Deepkarani. Later we'll have a group photo, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Myself, on the behalf of IEEE Vizag Bay section, we thank our IEEE Vizag Bay section chair, Dr. S. Lakshmi Narayana, for providing such an eminent talk for all of us. Thank you, sir. We really thank Dr. Sudhir Kumar, Chair, Educational Society of Vizag Bay section, for organizing this talk. We also thank executive committee members, all the seniors and other dignitaries who participated and interacted with Professor S.K. Ramesh in this talk. We really thank Professor S.K. Ramesh from California State University, USA, for delivering and educating all of us in ABET and IEEE mission towards improving quality and engineering education in the world. We thank all the participants for making this program grand success. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, Ma. It's very kind of you. Always happy to share. And remember, you know, IEEE's mission is advancing technology for humanity. So we're here to help every single member, wherever you are, and our non-members, because that's our mission. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ramesh Garu. Really, really.
Thank you, sir.
In fact, I served in NBA, National Board of Accreditation, Delhi also. In fact, it gave some of the insights of where exactly Washington Accord. At that time, Professor Rajdan and myself were drafted the document, and Professor Rajdan came to Washington to sign. I was there at the time. I was really happy. Now, let us go for national anthem. Photograph, somebody is there. Photo తీసుకున్నారా?
Yes, sir. Taken.
తీసుకున్నారు కదా?
Yes, sir.
Now we will go for national anthem. Let all be please kindly stand.